Xbox Game Pass, it is being called into question again on how successful it is, and does it have a major effect here on Xbox and layoffs? So last week was a pretty rough week in Xbox land, mainly for the people who did lose their jobs. There will also be disappointment, of course, with games that did get canceled that we're not going to be able to play anymore. But overall, as a gamer, as a consumer on Xbox, not really much has changed. I mean, Game Pass is still there. We're still getting an insanely good month in July. And then going forward into next year, looks like it is going to be very, very fun with the amount of stuff that they have planned with their core Gears and Halo and Forza and everything. But the layoffs did hit. People lost their jobs. It's sad. It happens in every single industry. It probably happened to people watching this video. It's just literally a part of life at this point. If you've ever worked for any big company, layoffs happen. Always sad though for the people who do lose their jobs and are trying to pick up the pieces and get their lives back on track to where it was when they were getting a paycheck for the work that they were doing. However, there's lots of questions that are now arising because of these layoffs. Why did these layoffs happen? And I have my opinion. I think it's pretty obvious overall what has been happening over the gaming industry throughout the past 2 years, since about 2022. I'll even show you a chart further on this video to just show this is what's happening, and there will be more layoffs coming in the gaming industry. But now the question, which always happens when it comes to anything bad happening with Xbox, is Xbox Game Pass to blame? I don't believe it is. My main thing for not believing it is because they are continuing to put games day one. They're putting Call of Duty in the service. If Xbox Game Pass was killing the Xbox business, I don't think Microsoft or Xbox themselves would hesitate for a moment to change up their strategy. I don't think they would have been putting Call of Duty Black Ops 7 into Xbox Game Pass after seeing the big hit they could have potentially gotten from losing buyers of the game with Call of Duty Black Ops 6, which we do know from the data that has come out that putting Call of Duty Black Ops 6 has been a resounding success in both sales, in both subscriptions, all of those things. So I don't think Game Pass is the reason, but there is a thread here that went viral. Everybody was talking about it, and simply because he was questioning why isn't anybody talking about Xbox Game Pass, and then basically saying one of the reasons this stuff is happening is because of the Game Pass service itself. This is Rafael Colantonio, who is the president and creative director of Wolf Eye Games. And to be clear, Wolf Eye Games actually did put Weird West into the Game Pass service. I played that game. It was a cool game. I really did enjoy it. He puts this out and says, why is no one talking about the elephant in the room, cough, cough, Game Pass? And then you're seeing lots of responses here. Specifically, he says, I think Game Pass is an unsustainable model that has been increasingly damaging the industry for a decade, subsidized by Microsoft's infinite money. But at some point, reality has to hit. I don't think Game Pass can coexist with other models. They'll either kill everyone else or give up. And then you have very AFK here from Larian responding and saying, what happens when all the money runs out is the most vocal concern in my network, and one of the main economic reasons people I know haven't shifted to its business model. The infinite money thing never made any sense. Response here is, I agree, and I'm fed up with all of the BS they fed us. The first, don't worry, it doesn't impact the sales, only to admit years later that it totally does. No shit, it does. Really? And again, response here from the Larian guy saying, regarding cannibalization of sales, we aren't seeing that. The economics never made sense, but at the same time, I do recognize that for smaller teams with newer, riskier IPs, it helped de-risk. Much prefer Sony's lifecycles management strategy. And they continue here and say, yeah, the only way Game Pass can coexist without hurting everyone is for the back catalog. And this thread continues. It goes on and on and on. People giving their opinions about what they think about the service, what they don't think about it, if they think it's good, if they think it is bad. We have this response here saying, I'll tell you from my perspective as a consumer, the Game Pass is great. Why? Because lately we've been trained to know that AAA games will be low quality at launch, generic copy and paste of tired old genres filled with microtransactions, or all the above. And Rafael Colantonio responds here and says 100% what you describe is one of the reasons why the industry is going through a tough time. And that is basically all on the AAA developers, because this guy is correct. I mean, AAA games as of late have had so many issues with microtransactions, bugs. They're not very unique or different than stuff that we have seen in the past. And where you do get great new creative ideas has, I would say, in the indie scene when it comes to video games. But these guys think Game Pass is unsustainable. The question is, are they correct? I don't think they are correct for the reasons I explained before I went ahead and read those tweets. I also don't think that at this point, especially from what we are seeing, again, if Microsoft and Xbox saw that Game Pass was just this terrible thing, hurting their business, hurting developers' business, they would switch courses. And developers wouldn't be signing deals with Game Pass anymore to put their games in their day one. One of the biggest things that I've read and seen from Game Pass is that, like the guy at Larian said, it de-risks a lot of these developers, covers marketing costs, covers development costs. They can go ahead and be creative and make their game and not worry about if they have to sell a certain amount of units to be able to make their money back and be profitable. So I do not believe that the recent layoffs at Xbox had to do with Xbox Game Pass. I think that is just the easy thing to throw out there right now as everybody is being, I don't even know how to describe it, whether they're being over dramatic or they're being fake outrage or they're truly concerned. It's hard to tell. I feel like a lot of people are just playing off it because it is getting a lot of traction and getting a lot of clicks. One thing we do know, though, is that Xbox is going further into AI, and they need to do whatever they can to make sure that the AI infrastructure investment is there. And that would mean scaling back different parts of the entire business of Microsoft, not just Xbox. And the Seattle Times put out a great article going over that. It's summarized a bit here in Windows Central's article, saying that Microsoft's 2025 layoffs revolve around its desperate $80 billion AI infrastructure investment. Specifically, according to the report from the Seattle Times, they say Microsoft is moving to reduce headcount to free up more capital for AI spending. Specifically, the company is looking to invest more money in AI infrastructure and technologies and is making various cuts across many organizations and divisions to fund these efforts. Quoted here saying Microsoft's push into AI doesn't mean the company is replacing workers with the technology, which is, I think, a misconception a lot of people had jumped to when they had read this. But they say here, rather, the significant cost of building out the infrastructure over multiple years has Microsoft looking to trim costs where it can. And that is what happened last week at Xbox. That's why there were cuts, because they are looking to trim costs, nickel and dime, whatever they have to do to get further into this AI infrastructure to be able to build it up. AI is the biggest thing across all of tech. You're seeing the biggest tech companies invest in it. You're seeing them trying to be at the forefront, to be winners in AI. One of the companies that made a huge error that didn't think AI was going to be as big as it was Intel, and they've gone through a lot of cuts. Microsoft is doing the same thing here, and they went to Xbox and they said, we need you to make a certain amount of cuts. I mean, this is the way that I'm seeing it in my brain, at least in my opinion. We need you to make a certain amount of cuts. Phil Spencer and the team probably have to go through and look at the things that made the most sense to cut. Perfect Dark game had been in development for a long time, and they didn't probably see this one coming out for another couple of years, so that was a cut. An MMO from ZeniMax Online Studios that, from all accounts, from what we've seen, sounded like it was going to be pretty cool, so it's pretty sad that that one has been cut now. But they're probably looking at that one and saying, they're running Elder Scrolls Online, which is still widely successful. We might as well just focus on that and make as much money off of that as possible, rather than putting more resources into the ZeniMax Online game. And then, of course, Everwild, which I don't know how far that game was in development, but my guess is it wasn't even close to coming out. So they looked at those things, they cut those, and they hit whatever goal they had to hit for the cuts around Xbox. And that is the reason, based off of Seattle Times, based off of what we're reading here, is why those cuts make sense. It still sucks, again, for the people who lost their jobs and people who are looking forward to this game. I don't like it. I would rather see it not happen, but that's just the reality. And a lot of people online are jumping to just in craziness too when it comes to layoffs at Xbox last week. The other thing here is layoffs across the gaming industry have literally happened for the last few years. Sometimes I think I'm going crazy when I'm reading some of the stuff on X, but and mainly because on my morning videos, I may miss some of them, but I try to talk about almost every layoff that does occur. I'm sure I'm not 100% on it. And just from remembering all the videos that I make, because I do it basically on a daily basis, every week almost there was a report about layoffs for basically the last 2 years. Almost every week, I would say, definitely every month, a couple of months per month, there was some sort of layoff, whether it was small layoffs from an indie studio or a bigger layoff. Like, it's been absolutely insane, the reports of layoffs, cancellations, studio closures over the last 2 years. And this just falls in line as to what is happening. There's a scale back in the gaming industry, and I don't think it's because they're not making enough money. I think it's because they overinflated over the pandemic and everything. And a lot of these companies are seeing bloat, and they're having to cut that off. In fact, we are going to go here. People may laugh, I'm using Wikipedia, but I don't care. They did a good job of sourcing this and stuff, and showing the amount of layoffs in the gaming industry. You take a look at the amount of gaming layoffs since, you look at 2021, very minimal, very normal layoffs throughout the industry. There's always going to be layoffs every single year, but very normal. The pandemic basically ended in 2022. Like, things were starting to lighten up, and people were going out more and not staying at home playing video games all day, every day. And just look at what has happened since Q1 2022, and look how crazy Q1 2024 is. We go all the way down here. This is literally what is happening. This is the gaming industry making layoffs, and they are scaling back. And it's going to continue. There will be more layoffs. There will be more layoffs at Xbox in the future at some point. There will be more layoffs at PlayStation. There will be more layoffs across major third-party publishers. This isn't a unique thing at the Xbox division, which is a lot of people online are trying to make it out to be. In fact, if we even remember over the last year and a bit, the amount of layoffs that were at PlayStation, this is just a direct comparison. This isn't a console wars thing. But if you look at February 27th, 2024, PlayStation put this out where they had to cut 8% of their workforce, about 900 people, and they had to close down London studios, if you remember about this. And there was reductions in multiple different studios. This was just a year ago where this happened in 2024. And then even in 2025, PlayStation was hit with more layoffs following game cancellations. They've been cutting games left and right. Conqueror was a huge failure, so they had to continue to make cuts along those. The visual arts studio was hit with fresh layoffs. So there is literally layoffs across the board, and this isn't something that is a unique situation at Xbox. At this point right now, at least from some of the videos and some of the reactions online, it doesn't seem proportionate to what has actually happened across the industry. And again, maybe I am crazy here. Let me know what you think about this in the comments. But last week was sad, of course, for the people who lost their jobs. Hopefully there isn't too much more to happen in the future, but this is not a surprise. And people who are acting like this is like the worst thing that ever happened in the entire world, kind of mind-blowing at this point, as we do continue a phenomenal year right now in 2025 in gaming, with the amount of content that as consumers and gamers we are getting. So I'll leave it there. Let me know your thoughts. Do you think I'm way off base? Do you think that I should be more outraged at what happened last week? Or do you think I'm being kind of logical as to what has happened throughout gaming, what is happening at Xbox, and where we are today in the industry? But if you did enjoy this video, make sure to hit that thumbs up. If you are new here, hit that subscribe, and I will catch you guys in the next video. Bye.